All right, I'm Craig,
I'm Steve.
and these are our Lightroom captures from our Dragging the Shutter. You can see we shot it in the kitchen of the studios. We're working to create a balance here where the subject is obviously lit by strobe or flash and bringing the ambient light in for detail. Now, once you get your subject in, and this was our final shots, you want to have them pose, move around. You can see Steve's turning. As he says in the other video, the motivation was that he is working at the computer. I walk in, he says, "Hi, how you doing?" And he turns away. See, there's some subtle changes, just his arm. Now here we changed the exposure a little bit. We increased the lighting of the background so it became much more dominant. Steve, you think that works better or not as well?
Well, I think that there's a different mood that sets that you're creating. You know, we talk about building story, and where this person's sitting in a space, adjusting some images on the computer. Do you want him to be in a dark, mysterious room? Do you want him to be in a little bit brighter, lighter room? So right now, I think that one is clearly too bright for me. But a lot of it really just kind of sets a mood. And how do you want to, what kind of mood are you trying to tell?
And we lose the feeling of the subject being strobe lit.
Yeah.
And the reason we're doing that is to have control, lighting different areas with different exposures.
And it's a three-dimensional feeling too when we have the proper balance that you're talking about.
Yeah, in this situation, it looks like we just used aperture priority and the camera decided to make a choice. Now here, we moved from the original exposure and started to speed up the shutter speed.
It's very dramatic.
Very dramatic.
I think something for me in this one is the computer doesn't look properly balanced too. It looks like he's looking at a dark screen.
And exactly, we look like we're in too dark of a room. And there we slowed it down even more, and it's getting to the point where we only have the flash affecting the subject, and there's no sense of background or place. Even though you can see the light on the lower, or in the right back of our screen, it still doesn't give us a sense of place.
And the only changes you're making are to the shutter speed.
And this gives you an idea of how we started to build the exposure. We started thinking about what the computer screens would look like. We started to experiment with the shutter speed. Now we are slowing it down, and you try to find a balance to when you think the ambient light exposure starts to tell your story.
I'm starting to like this, and one of my baselines or areas to look at is that computer screen. It looks realistic to me at a bright level, brightness level, where someone would be sitting in front of it and working at it.
Especially since a lot of people work on their computers in a darkened room.
Yeah.
It's given that feeling.
Yeah.
And then we brought our subject back in, and we got the strobe exposure right. Now, we have to be at the same f-stop for both, obviously. We can't shoot at multiple f-stops. But in this case, we're not at 1/125th of a second like we have on the other strobe shots. We're at 1/10 of a second to capture the ambient light. And here's where the computers went to sleep. You got to pay attention, they come back on.
Absolutely.
It's a completely different shot. We're losing the storytelling factors. This is the overall set when we first walked in. This is what we saw. We turned on some lights and saw it wasn't very, very dramatic. So we started cutting back some lights, started looking at how we can make the place feel a little bit more interesting. Brought in the subject again, balanced out our light, fired up the computer. As Steve mentioned earlier, this one seems a little dark, so we might adjust the speed a bit, but it doesn't look completely out of balance.
Not at all.
And then just some different poses at the end, but notice how it's getting a little brighter. We have been slowing down the shutter speed so the ambient light gets lighter, or in this case it gets darker. You should experiment to see the right balance because your room will have different lights on it. You may not have a computer screen. You may not have fluorescence the way that we have here. Notice the background got a little darker because we turned off some lights out there.
I think this is a good time to remind them that we did a lot of experimenting, and then when we found the balance that we liked, we shot a series of portraits with different poses and different expressions. So we have a large group at that camera setting combination that we liked the most.
And so this was a shot that we felt too dark. We'll go back to our original in the beginning, the one that we felt had better balance.
Right there.
And we're right in here. And we felt this had better balance. We still get nice form rendering from the flash
Yeah.
on our subject,
Yep.
and it's telling the story.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it.
I think we're good. Good luck on this. We're sure you do well. Find a nice spot in your house, the little pools of room light. You can have lights on down the hallway, and it'll work.
And drag the shutter.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.